Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Oreaganic podcast. I'm your host, Reagan, and I'm really excited for today's episode because the topic we are discussing is one of my favorite things to discuss with anyone who will listen to me. If you know me in my personal life, you will know that I have something that I call my number theory, where I have good numbers and I have bad numbers. And this kind of discernment that I use to decide what I feel like are quote unquote good numbers versus bad numbers are based on like my personal preferences and how number 4 has like always been my favorite number and just things that I have seen in relation to the meanings behind different numbers and the significance behind them. And I have just come to the conclusion that 3, 4, 7, 8, and 11 are the best numbers. But again, this is just my personal discernment, just a weird little quirk about me. But I actually found it so fascinating to see that numerology, the study of numbers, is a genuine, real thing. And if you think about it, when it comes to any math, physics, any sort of science, particularly when it comes to like the structure of the universe, like everything that we study when it comes to trying to understand our physical world and our reality involves math and science, and math and science are very much so built up by numbers or described by numbers. Like numbers are the language of this kind of understanding of the universe in a way. So there's actually a lot of like scientific kind of background just to the idea that numbers have significance in the sense of like they are part of the building blocks of the universe or how we understand them. And I just find it even more interesting to look deeper into the meanings of each number and where this applies to us in our lives. And like why I particularly find it fascinating is because there's a particular significance behind the date of your birth and particularly each year that we move through. So you may have heard about like the fact that 2026 is a year 1, or you might hear people talking about how like they're a life path number 4 or a life path number 11, or there's all these different ways that numbers can show up in our life that are particular to us that kind of explain or give background context to your makeup or potentially the energies that are influencing you already. So it's similar to astrology where like it does not define your life, it does not create new ways like explain your behavior, but it's just like a correlation factor almost to understand like the different seasons of life you're moving through, and also potentially on a greater scale your life purpose on a very general, large, wide scale. I have a feeling that this episode is going to resonate with a lot of you, especially if you are like me and you find this really interesting. So we're going to go over the meaning behind each number, what life path numbers are, what personal year numbers are, what collective year numbers are, just all the significance that you can glean from understanding your personal numbers in whatever context, how to calculate them, what it actually means, and that's about it. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Welcome to the Oreaganic podcast. I'm your host, Reagan, mechanical engineer, lifelong athlete, and recovered overachiever, here to empower you to pursue your highest potential and live freely as your happiest, most organic self. Every week, we'll dive into topics ranging from personal growth, mindset hacks, psychology, and a blend of science and spirituality to give you all the tools you need to stop living on autopilot and start creating a life of freedom, meaning, and fulfillment as your most organic self. If you're ready to become the best version of yourself, then let's plant those seeds and grow. Alright, my friends, numbers truly are the language of the universe, and I cannot be more excited to get into this episode because I literally just geek out over this stuff for fun. Like, when I found out that numerology was actually a thing, I was like, wow, this explains what I have already known for forever. So, starting with going through the significance behind each number 1 through 9. I'm going to exclude 0, but just assume that it's just a fresh start and new beginnings. Like, come on. Moving on. Starting with number 1. Number 1 is associated with individuality, independence, ambition, being a pioneer, being a leader, someone who just really takes charge and initiates things. I mean, it's literally the first number in the sequence of 1 through 9. Like, it's absolutely the initiative energy, go-getter, I will go first kind of vibe. Number 2 is associated with harmony, partnership, cooperation, diplomacy, emotional sensitivity, bringing things into balance. The main core themes here are balance and partnership. And as you guys might notice, these might seem pretty intuitive, especially for 1 and 2. I feel like it's just kind of common sense, the things that I'm describing. But as we go up higher into I want to say 5 and above, I feel like these numbers are not super obvious for what they mean. So I'm going to keep going through and just stay universal with all the numbers. So moving on. Number 2, again, associated with harmony, partnership, teamwork, 2 things coming together, bringing balance, and emotional sensitivity, I think, comes into play just in terms of the balance required to bring 2 things together and to be sensitive and aware to that, for the example of a relationship. So that's number 2. Number 3 represents creativity and expression. I have also seen number 3 be heavily associated with spiritual support and a sign that you are being looked over. I've heard people talk about this a lot in the sense of spirit guides, angels, passed on loved ones, all kind of one and the same if you really want to think about it that way. But I really associate 3 with that. If I ever see the angel number 333, which could be a whole other episode, but that number is commonly associated with that kind of protection, support kind of energy. But 3 is also associated with bringing positivity, inspiration, like I said, creativity, kind of just bringing things to life and being playful, expressive, and inspired. Number 4, my personal favorite number, and has been since I was the ripe old age of 4 years old. Every single year before I turned 4, my favorite number was my age, and then I turned 5, and my favorite number is still 4, and it's never changed. So number 4 is all about stability and practicality. So it's really heavily associated with structure, foundations. It also, when I think of number 4, I think of the fact that there's 4 seasons and how that is just a natural part of the cycles of life, and kind of understanding that being the foundation for all of existence, going through cycles and seasons. And it really is just associated with security, strong foundations, building a solid base, and being someone who can follow through and achieve success with hard work, organization, structure, security, order, and people who excel in structured environments. Number 5, a little less intuitive to understand, but it's allegedly said to represent freedom and adventure. I heavily associate number 5 with change and just bringing change into life, whether that is through big or small changes, usually kind of pretty significant ones. But number 5 is definitely associated with kind of just movement, exploration, finding variety in life, curiosity, adaptability, which does in fact overlap with, the idea that we go through changes in life. 5 is just a very in-between number. I mean, when you think about it on the scale of 0 to 10 or even 1 to 9, 5 is that in-between point. We're kind of just, changing, exploring, adapting, creating new ways of being. So 5 I associate mostly with change and kind of just adaptability, curiosity. Number 6, nurturing and responsibility. I notoriously, guys, I will say, for my number theory, 6 was always a bad number. And this is not actually really rooted in anything besides the fact that everyone is oh my god, 666 is the devil's number. And yeah, it does sound spooky when you say that, I will not lie. And I think that's been used, I'm sure, in horror movies in the context of things being kind of spooky. But 6 in and of itself is not a bad number. It's not something that's associated with horrible things happening or etc. If anything, 666, if you see it through the lens of an angel number, is kind of just a call to reflect inwards and see where in your life things might not be aligned, or where you might have to kind of reflect and reevaluate on your behavior to better align you to a situation that is better for you. But number 6 can be associated with compassion, care, responsibility. It's also similar to 2. It's associated with harmony. This carries more of the energy of service, a love for family and friends, a duty to support other people, and being drawn to more caring roles. Number 7, This number, guys, spoiler alert. I just went through my personal year number 7. That was high key a bitch. It was high key a fucking bitch. We'll get into that later, but 7 is very heavily associated with spirituality and introspection. And why I say that this past year of my personal year 7 was a bitch was because I very much so experienced the kind of initiation, I guess. Like, I really had the challenge of going through a very spiritual, introspective year that came with a lot of challenges in and of itself. But 7 is absolutely linked to a very, like, spiritual, inner, introspective, wise kind of energy. It represents the search for truth, deeper meaning, and knowledge. It's a very contemplative, spiritual, growth-oriented through introspection kind of number. Number 8. 8 is also a number that I always said was a good number because I'm not going to explain the whole background, but I knew that 8 was like, the infinity symbol just turned upright. And I know that the infinity symbol is something that's associated with just, in my mind, like unified consciousness, the fact that, like, we are eternal souls existing. Like, this might get a little esoteric, but I know that infinity was always, a generally positive symbol. And 8 obviously is the same symbol, just in a different orientation. Anywho, 8 is also very much so associated with material success and abundance. Like, it's a number that you will see a lot of people use in terms of, like, money. Like, if you see on, like, Pinterest, like, the angel number boards where it's, like, 888, like, I don't know, manifesting millions, or, like, I don't know, whatever random abundance mindset thing you want to see. But 8 is very much so associated with material success, ambition, authority, achievement, combining your vision with discipline to actually create the things that you want. 8 is also like a more evolved form of 2, in that 2, that number is associated with things coming into balance, like actively balancing things, whereas number 8 is kind of the embodiment of number 2, where it's like things are balanced, the energy is there. And it's also associated with kind of with like leadership roles, business, pursuit of financial security. Like, 8, we love her. She's a good number. Number 9, the final number, as one might expect, is associated with completion as well as compassion, generosity, humanitarianism, carries the energy of wisdom, completion. I mean, obviously it's the last number in the series of 1 through 9, and usually it's just a call to cycles ending, things coming to a close. We're closing one chapter and moving on to the next, like endings coming to new beginnings, but kind of just reflecting on those. And that is the main gist of numbers 1 through 9. There are, in fact, master numbers where, like, 10 has some significance, yes, but like 0 and 10, I'm sorry, respectfully, you're kind of boring, because it's literally just 0 and 1, and 0 is kind of just, I don't really count it too much. Also, if you guys are curious about any of these things, there are many resources online to talk about the significance behind all of these numbers and what they mean and like different perspectives on them. But I have come to my own conclusions just based on like literally just the vibes that I get and kind of understanding a lot of the general themes that are attached to each number. So if you're curious to explore these on your own, I highly encourage you to do so. But moving on to master numbers, very generally speaking, they are, well, not generally speaking, they're numbers 11, 22, and 33. And generally speaking, 11 is associated with intuition, spiritual insight, and enlightenment, being very highly sensitive and aware, because life path 11s in particular are seen as kind of like bridges between like the spiritual world and the physical realm. And they are kind of seen as people who can kind of stand in between both and bring a greater level of awareness and understanding to both planes of existence, so that you can come to a greater sense of like peace, fulfillment, alignment, all the good things. Fun fact, I am a life path 11, so doing my best to fulfill this little mission of mine. But anyways, number 22 is known as the master builder, where it's kind of blending like visionary thinking with practical skill to achieve results. Like, you're bringing together the balance of actually like creating something. As I said, master builder, like doing what it takes to, well, already having like the, I don't know, creativity to have ideas and bring things about and like create change, but then actually taking action on them and building the change like in real life and not just thinking about it. And number 33 is like the highest of the highest tiers of like numbers, where it represents compassion, guidance, teaching, and has a very strong focus on helping and uplifting others. This number is seen as a very like enlightened one, for lack of a better word, like very, very attuned teacher, wise, spiritual guide kind of energy. So those are numbers 1 through 9, as well as the master numbers. And to understand them a little bit better, I'm going to take them in the context of life path numbers and personal year numbers and collective year numbers, because I'm just going to tell you guys all the three things I just said: life path number, personal year number, collective year number. Like, these are all the same thing. Like, the calculation for them is all the same. So to calculate each of these individually, we'll start with your life path number. This is simply adding up the individual digits of your birthday. So, for example, January 11th, 2000. Let's say that is 1/11/2000. So 1112. So we're going to add 1 for January plus 1 for 11, because you don't add them as like the whole digit. You add each individual digit. Like, you don't add 11 to 1. You just add 1 and 1, if this is making sense. So 1 plus 1 plus 1, 3, plus 2 for 2000 is 5. So someone born on January 11th, 2000 is a life path number 5. And to calculate your personal year number, you do the same exact kind of calculation, except you just add the year that it currently is and not your birthday. So life path numbers speak to more of the general theme, to obviously kind of your whole life and your purpose. Again, none of the, like, if you calculate your life path number and you look it up and you're like, this is not me at all, like, that's great. Take it with a grain of salt. Take what applies. This is very, again, similar to astrology, where it's like, this is not a rule book. This is not a prescription for your life or how you are or the energy that you carry, nor is it like an absolute guide or dictionary definition of how you're supposed to act based on it. It can simply inform and give you some really interesting information that you can then use to discern how, if, and where this applies to your life, and where it can maybe show you different lessons or seasons or things that you have gone through without even realizing that this is kind of like seen or can be described by a certain theme of energy that is depicted through these personal numbers. Moving forwards. So personal year numbers and life path numbers, again, same calculation. The only thing that changes is the year that you use to calculate it. So if I were to do a personal year number for, let's say that same example, someone born on January 11th of 2000, their personal year number, which in my experience really shifts on your actual birthday and not your calendar year, like it shifts literally on your birthday. So someone born January 11th of 2000, their personal year number for 2026 to 2027 would be 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 6. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then you add the 1 and the 3, 4. So for someone born on January 11th, 2000, or just January 11th, your personal year number for this year, 2026, is 4. And if we're going to take it another level out to collective year numbers, the only way that you calculate this is literally just by adding up the individual digits of the year. So 2026, 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 6 is 10, which deduces down to 1. This year is a collective year 1. Now that we know how to calculate these numbers, I'm going to go through each individual year number. I might actually change my mind and not do life path numbers in this episode. I might do a whole separate episode on it, because I just feel like there's so much depth that I could get into with each life path number, and I want to give it the kind of depth that it deserves. So moving through the personal year numbers, because this will also apply to collective year numbers. Starting with personal year number 1, as you might expect, this is associated with action, new beginnings, opportunity, taking charge on a new endeavor, new beginnings, being initiated into the ideas that you've had, or just bringing to life these things that you maybe want to start anew. This year carries the energy of initiation, like I said before, fresh starts, new beginnings. And if you have been feeling the energy this year in 2026, where it's like, wow, things are really kicking off anew. I'm getting started on new adventures. I'm like noticeably feeling a shift in like a lot of just fresh new energy that could maybe be explained by the fact that it is indeed a collective year one. There is a strong desire for independence and just doing things that you want to do just the way that you want to do them. In this year, it is very much so that kind of Aries energy of like being the initiative leader kind of your own life. And because of that, this can potentially be a challenging year for finding balance in partnership or just with other people, because you have so much of that initiative kind of fire, new, fresh energy that really comes with leaning into more of that ambitious leader kind of energy. A personal year / collective year number 2, similar to the definition or like the meaning behind number 2, is highly associated with relationships, cooperation, bringing things into balance, finding peace. You are finding new alignment after going through your personal year 1, which is a little more initiative, a lot of energy, a lot of fresh new starts. Like personal year number 2 or collective year 2 is a lot softer. It's a lot more peaceful, and you might feel drawn to find peace in your partnerships, just like kind of just a lot of energy of unifying, finding balance in your life, in your relationships, in just how you see the world. And it's associated with just a heightened sense of compassion for others. And again, finding balance and just figuring out what works best for you and learning how to better cooperate with others, work with others in your life, and finding success through doing so by sharing and leaning on others, receiving, and just looking to find balance in all areas of your life. Life path number 3 is associated with self-expression, creativity, planning, new ideas, and optimism. This is kind of like a really heavy embodiment of your internal, personal, creative energy, and that kind of just like ambitious, fluid, childlike sort of exploration where you just want to kind of just do everything or pursue new ventures in that way, or being more social with other people, discussing things that you've always been interested in, kind of just leaning into this very creative, highly potent life force energy kind of experience. It really is a year where you're just trying new things, putting yourself out there. It's kind of more of a casual year in that sense, where it's like you're really just like going all out, trying new things and just finding yourself through more uninhibited self-expression. Personal / collective year number 4 is all about building a new foundation, practicality, work, security, and looking towards the future in terms of how you are actually going to do what is necessary or create the foundation that you need to have the kind of future that you want. It's very much so a year that's focused on organization, discipline, and not just standing still, but actually creating the foundation that you need to have that future life. This is almost like the responsible adult year where you're kind of just getting all your shit together and making sure like, okay, do I actually have like, am I hitting my money goals? Am I saving enough money? Do I have the literal, physical, practical systems in place for me to have, maintain, and sustain a strong foundation, both in this current season of life that I'm in and also for the future versions of life that I want to be living. It's a year where you really have the ability to restructure your life in a way that allows for this, but it just takes the kind of more masculine energy, the work, and the ambition to actually create that foundation. Personal / collective year 5 is associated with freedom, change, discovery, travel, exploration, similar to the energy of the number 5, where I mentioned before I often associate it with change for the better. This year is very much so like just an adventurous kind of year. You're trying new things. You might literally be traveling. You are in a stage of expansion, and when you think about the cycle, you're moving towards the second half of this cycle of 1 through 9, and you are both physically and mentally just exploring new things, finding new parts of yourself, just trying new things, just putting yourself out there. It almost reminds me of the energy of 3, but this feels much more like, it's not unhinged, it just feels very like free flowing from the sense of like, maybe a 3 can be described as like finding more freedom, expression, creativity within yourself and kind of a more like individualistic experience, whereas the 5 to me feels like the energy of kind of stretching that exploration to things, people, places outside of you to find more personal growth, fulfillment, and learn new lessons through doing so. It's a very curious, put yourself out there, be ambitious, try new things, and just have fun with it kind of year. But since it is associated with the number like of change, it could also be a year where there are big life changes, big transitions that you may or may not have been expecting. But all of the change, I promise you, is going to be for the better, even if it feels really hectic while it's happening. Personal/collective year 6 is associated with family, service, health, and finding a greater sense of harmony and inner peace, especially within your relationships and potentially your family unit. This number to me really carries the essence of Cancer energy in terms of like zodiac signs, because it's very nurturing, it's very service-based, very selfless, very peaceful, calm, just like bringing unity to your relationships. It's kind of like similar to how 5 to me is like a similar but different expression of the number 3. I feel like 6 is a similar expression to number 2, where you want to bring balance into your home life, your family, your relationships, your friendships, just everything. But it's from a much like, it's a very nurturing, like more group focused, higher sense of balance than just the kind of duality, individualistic perspective of the number 2, where it's just like you're only bringing 2 people together. This seems like more of like a community kind of energy. Personal/collective year 7, you motherfucker. This year was a bitch for me, and I can speak to my personal experience. It's associated with introspection, spirituality. Something I'm reading literally says crisis of faith. This is absolutely hilarious because it could not describe the past year that I've had any better. Let me just read. This year will be a contemplative one. It's time to journey inside yourself, to be alone and re-examine your goals, relationships, and behaviors. You may find yourself drawn to spiritual or philosophical subjects as a way of understanding the hidden truths of life. By the way, what I'm reading, which is not the entirety of what I'm basing my definitions off of, but kind of just as a reference, is from Adrian Beta, BEYTA.com. So hashtag no plagiarism here. But a personal year 7, similar to number 7, it's just really heavily associated with that kind of spiritual growth. And from my experience with this year, I have absolutely had an evolution and expansion of my faith and my understanding of spirituality, faith, our greater purpose, consciousness, how my understanding fits into that, like using the perspective and I don't know, wisdom that I carry to kind of bridge the gap between 2 very different polarized sides of how a lot of us see the spiritual world. It's something that has been like a major fucking theme for me for literally the past year, like to the date. So not a coincidence to me that I really feel like this was very not serendipitous, because this was not exactly a fun experience, but it was very much aligned with the experiences that I had naturally just in the past year, because I just recently had my birthday. So I'm now in personal year 8, thank God, because as I said, with this year, very introspective. You can find changes in your spiritual beliefs, your relationships, your behaviors. It's just like it's like a reset year. It's like, okay, what is in your life or your psyche or your beliefs that is not actually fully coming from you or meant to be here? Like, what do we need to change, to tweak, to align you to a better version of life, of being, to closer alignment with God, with your truest, most authentic expression of self? Like, how are we going to get there? And this feels like absolute fucking shit, because it's just really rough. Like, it's not a fun experience to have every single part of your life that is not necessarily in its best shape to be illuminated, or for small things to then become bigger things that are brought to the surface, where it's like, well, shit, I don't know what I actually think of that, or I don't know how I'm going to deal with that, or I don't know how I'm going to balance that. Like, it's very much so an individualistic, introspective kind of journey, which naturally for me led to a lot of struggles with like finding balance in my relationships, and both balancing my perspective with other people's perspectives, and unlearning the idea that I can't be fully myself and speak in my truth and still be loved by the people who are closest to me. Like, deconditioning from that has been a massive part of the past year. So a personal year 7 will throw you through the fucking ringer. Holy shit. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm not. I was going to say maybe I'm just dramatic, but that's absolutely a lie, because this was genuinely probably the most challenging year of my adult life that I have experienced. So, absolutely marvelous and incredible, but it is a great time to seek wisdom, to lean into the lessons that the introspection is trying to show you, to almost have like a hermit crab phase and just really spend time with yourself and your psyche. Maybe not for the whole year, obviously, like not completely isolate yourself, but maybe go through periods where you are in a sort of hermit crab mode, where you are kind of just hearing your own thoughts, maybe for the first time in a while, and understanding that you have areas of your life that are conditioned based on other people or other experiences or things that don't actually serve you. And in order to actually achieve a higher, better, happier expression of yourself in life, you have to move through these things where first they have to be revealed to you. And they are very heavily revealed to you in a personal year 7. So you can expect a lot of changes, or maybe just things coming to the surface when it comes to your spiritual beliefs, your perspectives, your understanding of not only yourself, but also just the world at large and our existence here. And because of the nature of it being very introspective and quite serious when it comes to like spiritual thoughts, beliefs, like this can be like a very heavy topic, especially for like partnerships. So it can be a somewhat challenging year if this is not something that feels fully resolved. And I'm going to leave it at that. Moving on. Personal year number 8 / collective year 8. Similar to, obviously, the energy of 8 amplified, it's really associated with finances, prosperity, responsibility, coming into power, coming into authority, there being blessings after going through the challenges and lessons of a personal year number 7. So this can be something where you kind of get to master your own resources, you get to experience and enjoy more material abundance or prosperity, or just abundance in general, not necessarily money. But it's a year very much so where you own your power, you are direct, you are deliberate in the way that you get results, and you are just standing on fucking business. I'm sorry, that was so cringe, but you're standing on business and you're figuring out your money shit, and it's a great year for abundance, especially after such a challenging year, potentially, for a personal year 7. And for a personal / collective year 9, this is all about the ending of the cycle, integration, emotion, giving, closure, completion. It is the end of a cycle. It is understanding the lessons that you have learned and reflecting on them, sharing that with others, integrating those lessons into your personal life, bringing the lessons that you have learned, as I said, to the other people around you, to the world around you, and just preparing yourself for a new cycle. Like, I would say that it's probably not a great time to start something anew necessarily if you're in a year 9, but very much so take that with the fattest grain of salt, because a lot of the kind of like prescriptions that you see when it comes to people saying like, oh, I wouldn't do this in a personal year that, or whatever, like, yes, it's true that the energies of these numbers and these years are like real and genuine, but you also have the free will and discernment to be able to understand that like it doesn't have to affect you so poorly. Like a lot of the ways that these things affect you come down to just like Like, the numbers are not controlling your life. So basically, do not make life plans based off of them, like whether or not you're in a life path 9 and you get into a new relationship and then you're like, oh my god, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Like, do not think that way. It is not that deep. But it is interesting just to think about it. And from a very, very general sense, if things are coming to a close, maybe you don't want to necessarily start something anew in the midst of still closing out one chapter. But then again, as I said, a year 9, guess what, leads straight back to a year 1. So as with life, every time that one cycle ends, a new cycle begins, and we go back to the top. And if you want to take the numbers that I just described and just like apply them to your life path number, it's kind of the same energy. Like, this is what I love about numerology, is that all of these numbers carry the same sort of energy to them. They have the same personality, like very similar, but the actual embodiment and expression of them in the context of different things like personal years versus collective years versus life path numbers is a little bit different. Personal and collective years, I mean, it's essentially the exact same thing, just on either a personal scale or a wider collective scale, obviously. But life path numbers can be a little more niche, and the lessons that you learn in them are something that can't really be explained super easily necessarily just with the number, but you can absolutely glean context from it. And if you want me to get into an episode about life path numbers, I do actually have one episode very early on that I think might literally be like episode 4, I don't know, where I talk about these things. But I do have that episode on the podcast if you are curious. If you are curious to learn more about your life path number, your personal year number, your collective year, or the collective year numbers, and honestly just think back to like experiences that you have had or years that have been really challenging or really notable, just go back and like calculate what personal year number it was for you. Like, just play around with it, be curious, just see what is out there and see the correlations that may or may not exist for you. Again, I personally find this absolutely fascinating. So this is not something that runs my entire life by any means whatsoever, but this is something that very much so just fascinates me, and I love it. So to wrap up, as a summary today, we went through each number 1 through 9, like the core single digit numbers that create every other number, and went through their general energy, personality, overarching meanings. And then we went through each personal year number / collective year number and what themes might show up for you in each year, as well as how to calculate your personal year number, the collective year number, and also your life path number. And as I said, I will probably do another episode just on life path numbers potentially next week. So stick around for that. Thank you for listening to this episode. I am so happy that you are here, and I'm grateful to be in your ears. Go be your most organic self, and I will see you in the next one.